I'm out of retirement to help try to fix Star Wars. Dash Star by Dash Star 2.0.
After I saw The Last Jedi, and I'd openly stated I wasn't a fan of it and started to question Disney Star Wars as a whole, I was met back then with open vitriol and hostility, and I honestly questioned my own judgment, feeling alone.
Maybe I am a monster. I don't think I'd know if I were one.
It's almost...
No. As much as I don't necessarily defend the sequel trilogy, I'll watch it. It's kind of those, like, you turn your brain off to watch it, right? But that's not necessarily the Star Wars that I want to watch. Sure, I like some of the plot points. I hated the romance subplot. Like, that actually killed Episode 9 for me. If they took that out, oh my god. Like, ugh. I have thoughts and opinions. At the end of the day, I've discussed ad nauseum, where I'll watch the sequel trilogy. It's whatever. If you enjoy the sequel trilogy, that's fine. You're allowed to enjoy it. That being said, there needs to be that mutual respect between people who do enjoy it and don't enjoy it. And throwing vitriol at somebody for being, well-spoken, as Dark Lord Dash Star is, right? Because I've seen his content, right? He's pretty well-spoken. Pretty bad taste, pretty bad form. It's like the argument that I see on Twitter for, well, you don't like Pokemon, the whatever Lico's a part of, is it Pokemon Horizons? Well, you don't like Pokemon Horizons because you're ass-pilled and a misogynist. Wow, okay, cool. I'm going to continue doing whatever the hell else I'm doing because I don't want any part of that community.
It's bittersweet to realize that I'm not alone. And in 2025, we're more akin to Legion as there are more disenfranchised fans than ever. And Star Wars is being run by an apathetic corporation. But I come today with a message of hope that we're going to build out the Star Wars fan universe, or Star Wars FU, I guess. And it's on the creators to create something worthwhile.
I will extend my hesitation in certain aspects, strictly because did we not have a creator try to make AI Mark Hamill without asking Mark Hamill? And then came back with, well, why did you tell him or something? Oh, there was a whole kerfuffle over it. In which that's not the side of the Star Wars fan base that I ever want to associate with. My dad, he watched Star Wars as it aired, 1977, back when it was Star Wars, right? Not Episode 4, A New Hope, Star Wars. Grew up on Episode 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. Am I necessarily an expert? No. I do love things. I do love things like Legends from Knights of Rand. Oh god, they're so messed up, but I love the Knights of Rand. I'm the weird part of the fan base that does like Force Unleashed, and head canons it in as canon. And even then, there's things about the sequel trilogy in canon that I find very interesting. I'm very picky on it because it definitely gets really screechy in certain aspects, especially when someone is caught trying to make an AI Mark Hamill for a fan film, but doesn't ask Mark Hamill for permission for their likeness. I do take great issue with that. That being said, if this name does sound familiar to people, Dash Star used to have an older channel, and this is one of those like weird twist of fate things. He used to have an old channel called Dash Star, one of the larger, if not largest, Star Wars creators from back in the day, right? 10-ish, 20, well, not 20, like 10-ish, 15 years ago, right? That's who this is. When I say that Dark Lord Dash got me into Diablo 2, this is Dark Lord Dash. This is Dash Star. It was a really cool twist of fate kind of thing, if I'm being completely honest. I really love the work that he does. I think that this is a good and ambitious project. I also think that this is done in good faith. So if Star Wars FU is a thing, and it's done in good faith, I'm a huge fan of this. My worry is that it does, we are going to get some of the Star Wars community who are a little more screechy in on that. But that being said, it comes down, it's the 40K effect, right? The new people coming in should be respectful of the older people and vice versa, right? The new people should be respectful of the old guard should be respectful of new people coming in as long as each other are respectful. The moment it evolves into screeching, the moment that it evolves into insults, name calling, etc., you're done. I'm not having this conversation.
Stay tuned.
Is this a drill or something?
Greetings, exalted ones. My name is Dash, and welcome back. If you've been a long-time viewer, and welcome to the channel if this is your first time. For those of you who remember me creating Star Wars back in the heyday, I just want to kind of give you a brief update of where I've been, and then we'll get into what to expect from the channel. So basically, I am what they call an OG YouTuber of Star Wars back in the day. around 2014, 2015, I was creating a lot of content because I believed, somewhat erroneously.
No, I have a tremendous amount to learn from George. I think it's vitally important to anything we create that we hold on to the spirit of what started all of this.
Oh my god. I feel like that's the email chain, right? That's the one. Just collect. If her inbox ever gets leaked, that clip. Woo, as I said, look, I could turn my brain off and watch the sequel trilogy. It's fine. If there's one thing that I ask people don't do is it's lie to me. I feel like that is a bold-faced lie. I think we can say so objectively because of the direction the franchise went. Because of, wasn't Lucas's own script effectively thrown out for all intents and purposes? That's a very bad look.
That Disney, having purchased Star Wars and the franchise, would use all of the greatest stories from the expanded universe and then, basically craft them and put them into their own canon. And I would be kind of a helper droid along the way that explained how these things connected.
Sure.
I was just basically a conduit in between, the great lore and Disney. Well, that didn't exactly happen. Disney's made some good series, but overall, I really wasn't a fan. As somebody who I actually embraced Star Wars more for the expanded universe than the movies, and I really loved the darker, weirder Star Wars stories, more adult Star Wars that only the expanded universe seemed to serve openly, and now it's gone. Now,
what was the, someone's going to know exactly what I'm talking about. He's probably going to know exactly what I'm talking about. What about the aliens that invaded from, was it the south of the galaxy, and they interned souls into their technology? You're probably a huge fan of that. Oh my god, I forget the name, but it's not the Yuzhong Vong. I think they came from somewhere else, because I think they came from the northern part of the galaxy, from another galaxy. Man, there's some pretty cool stuff. There's some pretty cool stuff in Legends. There's also some cool stuff in the games. What was it? The tabletop had the now effectively fluid that could hollow people out and use them as puppets. Man, Star Wars Expanded has some really cool stuff.
Many of you may remember it was the moment basically when I kind of realized none of this was going to transpire. Was just, it was about 15 minutes into The Last Jedi. I was watching it with my parents at the cinema. The channel was humdinging, the fandom was thriving, and I just knew in my gut, I knew something was terribly wrong and that Disney was never going to fulfill any of my expectations. So I gracefully bowed out because any of the feedback that was negative that I gave at the time, or perceived as negative, basically it was just saying, hey, I'm not a fan of XYZ, but there was such a forceful pushback. And before that, everybody was so unified, the fandom seemed. So I realized I had to step away from the fandom because even just this negativity, it felt to snowball, and I never really felt it with Star Wars before. It was like I was choking on negativity. I'm one of those people that doesn't like to think about it too much. It just really disappointed. It broke my heart, and I'll talk about that a little bit in a moment. But so I stepped away until The Mandalorian came out, and then I just realized even that wasn't going to bridge the gap. I basically thought I was never going to create content again until I spoke to Star Wars Theory. I'm lucky enough to be joining him.
Right. Wasn't it Star Wars? Was it Star Wars Theory that did the AI thing? Yeah. Let me double check that information, Captain. Let me actually do the 2-second Google test to cite my source. AI Mark Hamill. Yeah, that would be Star Wars Theory, unfortunately. Yeah, I have opinions on that. Specifically in the response back to that. I am glad that he was able to speak to Star Wars Theory and was able to reignite his passion for content. I will, from a professional standpoint, I can't in good faith allow that. I can't in good faith get behind that. But that's not necessarily negativity. That is I have my professional disagreement with this. He doesn't, and that's perfectly fine. As it turns out, people can be adults and have different opinions on different things and have different morals and values, and they don't necessarily have to choke each other with those morals and values and ethics. Weird, I know, right?
And Stupendous Wave regularly on their podcast, which is Theory Wave, where we kind of commiserate. And the reason why is Theory said to me, you're not being negative, you're being candid. And then I thought, how selfish am I not talking to people who probably a lot of people out there like me more than ever that are, so angry that this hasn't happened, but also don't have anything, they have no new Star Wars lore to really chew into, bar like sparing little pieces, nothing to be excited about, nobody to talk to it about it in their own life. So I thought, I want to be that guy where if I critique it, there's also going to be an upswing of we're going to be candid, but also I'm a person who likes to see the good and bad and good. So hopefully.
So I will say, if you have critiques and opinions on the internet, you do open yourself up to critiques and opinions. This is just inherent knowledge, right? If I were to say something along the lines of, I liked Diablo 2. I liked being able to play through Diablo 2. I do think that if you're not geared appropriately or you have correct ways to gear, I do think that the end game can get pretty rough. I think that especially if you go into Act 4 Hell or go into Act 5, going to fight Baal, you can definitely run into a wall, to which that opens me up to the criticism of, well, then just gear correctly, Fivehead. Have you considered researching that this is how the game should reasonably be played? But that opens me up to criticism. If I were to say something along the lines of, I think that Episode 6 is the best of the original trilogy, that does open me up to criticism. Well, I didn't like Dagobah. Well, I didn't like, I thought the Emperor's Throne was kind of Deus Ex Machina. I didn't like necessarily the Emperor got thrown down the shaft, right? Or maybe you don't like the edit into the Star Wars, was it Star Wars HD when Lucas redid? No, Special Edition, right? Was it Special Edition or Blu-ray? When Vader adds his no, that wasn't in the originals. I watched OG VHS. I know, it's going to be weird. People are going to be watching me and be like, what's a VHS? I'm going to take some ibuprofen now, thank you. I didn't need to feel that old. But yeah, it's like, that does inherently open you up to criticism. Sometimes good, sometimes bad, sometimes founded, sometimes not, right? Me inherently saying that I enjoyed Diablo 2 Resurrected opens me up to, well, you just hate, Activision Blizzard's an evil company and you're supporting an evil company, Okay, sure. Great value you've added there. If I were to critique something along the lines of, I hated, Ben and Ray from 9. Oh, well, you just hate romantic involvement in the series, Sure, we're totally not going to forget, ruffian Lando Calrissian. Ruffian Han Solo and Leia. We're not going to forget their dynamic. We're not going to forget how Leia is a incredibly independent and strong female character. We're just going to completely ignore that argument. Sure, I guess. So this is to say, you are allowed to have an opinion. You are allowed to critique things and criticize things. I would absolutely recommend making sure you at least have founding, right? Look. Let's be clear, chat. A lot of the issues with Star Wars are not this weird, it's a plot to take over. It's a plot to destroy Star Wars. You can have an absolute you can have a raging lesbian as the main character, right? We're talking flaming crimson hair, black belts and outfit, and have a really cool story where she's just a raging lesbian and she flirts between the light and the dark side. And you could make a great story about that. As it turns out, it's not how you identify as. It's not who you are. It's not who you're into. Make a good story. That's it. You've done it. We've solved it, Batman. Make a good story. People will like the characters based on a good story. If the story is awful and people feel like self-inserts, that's a problem. Right? I mean, I know there's people that are going to go back and play something like Diablo 2. I mentioned Diablo 2 a lot because Dark Lord Ash, right? Love his Diablo 2 content. Watched his videos multiple times. He got me into Diablo 2. And there's going to be people that look at Akara, they're going to look at the rogues and be like, well, that's objectifying women. It was the 80s. I guarantee the audience of Diablo 2 was overwhelmingly male. Makes sense. It's fantasy from that era, right? Well, not that Diablo was 80s. It was late 90s going into 2000s, right? But I mean, it's 80s fantasy for all intents and purposes, right? You pull up Def Leppard, Rock of Ages, or what was it by Dio? Oh my God, I can't remember. There's a song by Dio. It wasn't Holy Diver, but it's he was going out throughout the video with a sword and stuff. It's high 80s fantasy. That's it. You've done it. You've identified the trope. It's not necessarily wrong to have that. It's not. I think if you do it tastefully, no one really cares, and in fact, it can be additive to the story.
There's a little more nuance and balance, but mainly I've got 3 pillars for the channel, which are thus.
Sure.
Number one, it's going to be authentic. We're going to authentically share together and hopefully heal together for those of us who are disenfranchised. Number two, focus on storytelling, new and exploring the EU. And the reason why I say that is because I'm going to create a series called Star Wars Dark. Dark is the third pillar, focusing on Star Wars, the dark, weird, and engaging side that I love so much in the EU. Not only are we going to tell these stories in a new way, which I'm excited to share with you, but also, like I said before, I realized Disney is never going to tell the Star Wars stories from the EU or create new stories that I want to see that are dark. So it's up to us as a fandom to roll up our sleeves and tell them ourselves. And that is what this mission for the channel is basically. So stay tuned. There's going to be upcoming content. I'm going to need your critique, comments, feedback, and hopefully we can feel that Star Wars feeling together. And as an old sign out for all of you that remember, if you love Star Wars, I want to talk to you about it. It's as simple as that.
I respect it. I have insane respect for this as somebody who watched Dash Star, before a lot of modern Star Wars fanisms came down, right? I'm in. I think this is a good thing. I'm personally, as I've said, very cautious when it comes to the Star Wars community, very much with the Star Wars theory AI thing, with other creators who effectively just turn it into a complaining fest. I'm here to talk about the cool side of it. I'm here to talk about, it is cool. It's cool to see, Luke's jacket pop open at the end of 6, and it's white underneath, therefore symbolizing that, well, he was struggling with the dark side. Wow, it's almost like he had good in him all the way, and the light ended up prevailing at the end, therefore he chose not to become Vader, stupidly throwing his lightsaber away at the end, don't get me wrong, opening up to Palpatine's lightning, but thus leading into Vader's redemption arc, right? Oh my god, you mean we can have educated discussion about Star Wars? No, I don't believe it, man. I will say from a actual criticism standpoint, it does seem like there's some audio pollution. It's probably because the space is too large. The audio is probably pitched up too high. I don't know if that's a mixer or if that's post. Like, for example, in post, I do go through DaVinci Resolve and I do normalize and boost the audio. It might be that, or it could just, there's some sort of static in the background, especially if you're looking for a more audio-focused experience, because I feel that, like, your specialty absolutely is going to be that audio-focused. I would definitely look into some kind of audio vetting, some sort of audio equipment for that. I think especially if you are going for a audio focused experience on this with visual aids, going into like your haven't watched your Legacy of Kain stuff, I apologize, but going into certain things like your Diablo 1 videos, your Diablo 2 videos, your Oblivion videos, which chef's kiss, peak. It's been very cool to learn some of the quests in Oblivion, which I actually didn't do because they were hidden secret quests. Just some friendly criticism there. I think if you focus on the audio, I think that's immediately just going to shoot up. But then again, because I do work with audio and because I do have somebody who heavily critiques my audio in a good way, right? I love you. You know who you are. It's one of those things that I consider. So definitely go check out Dash Star because it's really cool to see a creator who I knew back in the day. Well, not new, right? But watched back in the day, come back and want to come in with a very positive message, to come in with a very positive intent. And if the intent is to have a more positive fandom, if the intent is to be able to have those constructive conversations, being able to build each other up rather than just tear each other down because you disagree with someone's point, I'm all for that. In the description down below, you'll see a link to Dash Star. I'll try to link his other channels as well, specifically the ones tied to his Diablo 2 video, which I can't recommend enough. I really like his stuff. And thank you, Dash Star, for being just such a cool person. I will see you all in the next one.